Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Coming up,
Firefighter. So
Firefighter.
there is something that we develop. It's an ability to adapt.
Banter.
Right?
Yes.
I need to know where my line is. For me, I definitely felt moments of this is too much for me.
You know, that vicarious trauma itself is going to have an impact.
I've always been the kind of person who pushes through. That staying quiet, that not reaching out and talking to somebody, that is the thing that will destroy you.
You're listening to The Hurt Locker, the podcast that opens a door on men's mental health. And tonight's guest, we have Roman Harris. Roman, welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Hey, Yinka, how you doing? Thank you for having me, man.
When Tim told me, I know little about you, a bit small smidgen, but I was kind of excited and buoyant that, yeah, you're going to come on here. So welcome.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. When I discovered that the podcast was to do with like men's mental health, things of that nature, for me, it was more or less a no-brainer to be a part of it. And so, yeah, happy to be here.
How's today been for you?
Yeah, today's been good. Today's actually been a good day. I think so. Just to kind of like give some context to whoever's listening to this, because you might be listening thinking, who is this guy? Like
Well, let's start with that then. Who is Roman Harris?
Oh, bless you, man. Nah. I was just thinking because there's so many podcasts I listen to and people start talking and I'm like, I don't know who you are, dude. I might switch off. But no, so I'm a comedian. I'm a Londoner. I was born and raised here in London, and started my journey in comedy about 5 years ago. So I'm a baby in terms of the comedy space. Like, you know, it takes.
However, you're an award-winning baby. Yes.
That's right.
Come on.
That's right.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I recently won an award. It was the Leicester Square Theatre New Comedian of the Year for 2025. It's quite a thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll take the applause and the flowers. Yeah, it's quite a prestigious award. Like within the comedy community, there's a number of people who have won it before me, such as Rob Beckett, who's gone on to do amazing things. You know, so winning an award doesn't necessarily mean that success is next. You know, the hard work continues, the effort continues, but it did feel like a moment where it's recognition for the work I have been putting in, and it's something for me to enjoy and work to my advantage. You know, so that's a bit about me as to who I am in general. I come from a very creative background, and comedy's my thing.
Okay, we'll come back to the comedy itself, but for the benefits of our audiences, our listeners, our viewers, you were a fireman.
That's correct, yeah. So what I will say just quickly on that, Yinka, so I'm always very quick to correct people when this happens. So obviously old terminology is fireman.
Go on.
New terminology is firefighter. So
Firefighter.
That's right. Because there's some amazing men and some amazing women who are in that job. So you know, that's the new terminology, but that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's right.
You look young because you look really young, but so I'm thinking, was this your first career move, as it were?
Oh man! All right. Well, you know, I probably still look quite young because I've tried to keep.
Listen, compared to me, you look young. Don't worry about that anyway.
It's the lighting. It's the lighting and the cocoa butter. That's all it is.
You know the cocoa butter is essential.
It is, man. The cocoa butter, the shea butter, all the butter. But no, so I started my journey in the work life very early. Like when I was 17 years old, I actually ended up in a situation where I was living on my own. And I just finished doing a 2-year course in college, and at that point it was like either go to university or just start working, and I really didn't know how to navigate the space of university And the amount that it would cost me to go to university at the time was actually not a lot of money in hindsight.
Yes.
But at the time, I was like, how am I going to find £1,100 a year? But looking back on it, I'm like, I should have done that. So I started working, and I worked in supermarkets. I worked for NatWest Bank. I worked for a payroll company. But the London Fire Brigade was the first real career job that I had. So you're right in that respect. And I was 24 going on 25 when I joined the London Fire Brigade.
Okay. What attracted you to it? Specifically that?
You know, what attracted me to the job really was I was so sick of doing what I was doing previously. I really hated my job. I would come to work every day, log onto my computer, and I just wanted to throw it at the wall. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people can empathize and sympathize with that sort of feeling and emotion. And a friend of mine who I'd been, well, a lifelong friend of mine, really, he joined a fire brigade. And I think in life, you often see people do things and it shows you that you can do it too. It opens a door for you to believe that if they can do it, then maybe it's possible for you. And he joined and he said, look, man, you should just come to our open day, come along, see what the job is like. And so I went to an open day, and it was the most different thing that I'd ever experienced. All of the tasks that I had to perform, all of the challenges that were set before me, it was something I had never experienced before. And in that moment, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring for this. And if I keep getting through each stage, then it's meant to be. And in that respect, it was meant to be.
You just reminded me of a speech by Roosevelt in 2012. It's called The Man in the Arena.
Right.
And basically what it felt to me as you were talking then was that you were looking to step up, you were looking to get dirty, and you were willing to be challenged at that very moment, and you were prepared to take on the fight.
Very much so. You know, I never really thought of it in those terms at the time, because for me, it was really just a feeling of I want to escape what I'm doing and I just want to do something else. Like that was my mindset. But with that being said, that something else, I still had to make a decision as to what that something else was going to be. And the reality is that it was challenging. Every part of the experience was challenging. And so I guess I can see some truth in your assessment there, in the sense of I just thought, yeah, I'm ready for a challenge. I'm ready to be in an uncomfortable position in order to grow. You know, and it definitely put me in an uncomfortable position. I'd never experienced a culture like that before.
I'm going to come on to the culture, but I was thinking as a firefighter, I had this cliche perception of rescuing a damsel in distress and all of that thing, you know, scaling the ladders up and bringing the lady down or whatever, whomever.
Yeah,
and
of course.
But I can also assume as well there must have been a lot of hairy moments in that. It must have been a lot of challenging moments, because we're dealing with, for me, I would say that you're walking into unknown spaces.
100%. You're walking into unknown spaces in terms of just the process to become a firefighter, just the training process alone. And then beyond that, on a daily basis, you could be called to walk into further unknown spaces where you don't know what dangers may lie before you, you know, what things might trip you up, what things might cause you harm, you and your colleagues. Coming back to the idea of like actually joining the London Fire Brigade and making that decision, you know, there were a lot of unknowns. And firstly, like going through the training and some of the challenges, you know, you're right. There's this idea that people have as to what a firefighter would look like, right? You know, and what they would do, and the glamorization of it. from movies and such.
Yes.
And you know, I tell people like I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'6" on a good shoe day.
You know what?
I'm
It's funny. That was one of the questions I was looking at you. That was one of the questions I was going to ask as well.
right, you know. So I always said to people, like, guys would always be like, "Well, you're a firefighter. Oh, the ladies must throw themselves at you." I'm like, they ain't throwing themselves at me. Like, you know, they're not looking at me. I'm not the image they have in their head of the firefighter, right? But with that being said, it takes a lot of different people and all sorts to make that brigade run. And you know, from the tallest and the biggest and the burliest to the smallest, everyone finds their place within the London Fire Brigade. As long as you can do the job and as long as you can hit certain standards, then you know you can be effective.
Absolutely.
You know,
tell me about the culture.
Well, for me, and I think Yinka, I don't know a lot about you, but I think were you born and raised in the UK for your whole life?
In Liverpool, yes.
In Liverpool. Okay, great. So as a black man growing up in the UK and being raised here for your entire life, I think there is something that we develop. It's an ability to adapt. Now, a lot of people might call it code switching. That's the terminology that people use nowadays.
Talk a bit about code switching, just to educate a few people.
Well, code switching, in essence, is changing who you are in order to appease others or to fit into a situation. That's how I would describe it. You know.
Okay.
So, you know, you might pick up the phone to your friends who are of the same culture as you, and you'll be like, "Yeah, what's going on, bruv? You all right? Yeah, what's good? What's good?" That might be the normal way you talk.
Yes.
You walk into an interview and it becomes, "Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me." They would call that a degree of code switching. I look at it and I say, life is a journey of survival, right? As human beings, we want to survive. And the quickest way to survive is to figure out how to adapt. And so when you discover the situation that you're in, the parameters, the do's and the don'ts, you learn how to adapt to each situation. So what I would say, and the reason why I highlight as black men is because we know that the UK is a majority white space. So, yes. For example, if I was a white man and you left me in the middle of Nigeria, I would have to figure out how to adapt the do's and the don'ts. That's human nature. It goes beyond race. It's a case of how do you survive in the situation that you're left in or that you're presented with. And so walking into the London Fire Brigade, I had a few people tell me, look, this might happen. There might be banter.
Banter.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You get me? So it's just bant, you know, it's just banter. Don't take it so personally, X, Y, Z, right? So when I walked into that training center and I walked into that industry, I thought to myself, I know that there may be some things that aren't going to sit 100% well with me. I know there will be some things that I'll probably be able to look at and say, that could be deemed as racist or sexist or whatever. I need to know where my line is.
Okay.
And if something goes beyond the line for me, I need to be able to call it out. But the reality is, I knew I had to have some kind of buffer zone because things were going to happen. Right?
100%.
I need to survive. So I'm not going to call out every single thing that happens because I won't survive in this industry if I call every single thing out. But I know where my line is. And I know internally if something goes beyond that, whether it's to me or I observe it happening to somebody else, that's my threshold, you know?
Okay.
So I'll give you an example of something that was within my threshold. So when I was in training school, I had a particular instructor, and during assessment in the morning when they would come and make sure that you're dressed correctly, etc., he would walk up to me and he would go, "Ah, oh, Mr. Harris, you're laid back, aren't you? You're always so laid back. What you been up to this morning? What you been up to this morning?" I let that go. I let that go, right? Like, I'm not gonna
rise.
I'm not gonna rise to it, But
Yeah.
also, I'm not going to potentially have a man's pension messed up, right? At that point, like I'm thinking the big picture here. So I'm like,
Okay.
I'm not going to rise to it. But stuff like that is stuff where I was like, for me, I can withhold that
Okay.
because my skin is thick enough to withhold that, right? And to withstand that. But if I were to see someone being or if myself was directly abused in some way, I'm talking straight up,
Yes.
disrespectful or racist words said to me directly, I witnessed it being said to somebody else, then there would be a point where I'd say, okay, that has to be reported. I have to step up there. Hand on heart, I can say I never experienced that.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's partly because there has been a culture shift. There has been a culture shift over the years that I was in the brigade. There's been a culture shift in terms of people understanding what's right, what's wrong, what once was banter, but now actually is abusive or
Yes.
is racist or, has connotations of
Yes.
sexism and misogyny. I think that a lot of positive work has been done over the years to educate, and not just in the London Fire Brigade, but genuinely in society. I think society has become much more aware. I was at a football match a couple months ago. There was an older boy next to like maybe his nephew or his grandson, and the older boy said one or two things that were quite disparaging towards the LGBTQIA community. Referring to one of the players on the pitch as a particular type of person. And like the younger one was like, you can't say that. You can't say that, Now that's great because the younger generation are becoming more aware of what is acceptable, what's not. All of these things take time. So I can understand that some people are stuck in a bit of a time warp, and I can give a bit of grace. But as long as they're willing to be educated and change their ways, I can have time for them. If you don't want to if you don't want to be educated and you want to stay stuck in your ways, well, we have a problem.
It's funny you should raise that because who do you support?
I'm an Arsenal fan. I'm a good.
Okay. Specifically, then. Okay, so obviously I'm a Liverpool fan, and
well, it could have been Everton.
No, there's only two teams in Liverpool and Liverpool reserves. Okay, so let's not go there on that one.
Fair enough.
But on Match of the Day, many moons ago, it was Lee Dixon and it was Alan Hansen. I don't know if you ever remember this. But
I remember them. I remember the two of them, but maybe not the scenario. But tell me.
Alan Hansen referred to John Barnes and other players of colour as coloured. Okay. Yep. Lee Dixon gave him a look. But I kind of understood why Alan Hansen said it the way he said it. Because when you're in London, it's diverse. It's diverse and it's boss. I mean, I was there at the weekend anyway to go and see Kerry James Marshall, African-American painter, artist. So, yeah, that was pucker. But anyway, I didn't think that when Alan Hansen said what he said then, that he was meant to be derogatory because that was the parlance, as it were, used across the Northwest, across Liverpool, of his ilk, of his generation. But yeah, there's an education that needs to be had. And it's interesting how when I'm in London, I love London because of its diversity, but also it affords you an anonymity. Everybody's in it together.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go up north, as it were, when I'm in Liverpool, you do stand out. So you've got to know, as it were, for me, what battles are you prepared to take on?
Right. That's you know what? It's much like when you are raising a child, right? You choose your battles. What battle am I willing to fight with this child today? Yeah. And what can I let go? You have to know what battles you're willing to fight. And I had the experience the experience you mentioned there about Alan Hansen. I had something similar happen to me when I was working for NatWest. I was a teller, and a lady was describing someone who had served her previously, and she said it was the colored fella. And I always say to people, don't immediately get offended. I think we live in a world where people often want to be offended. They're almost just waiting for it to be offended and to react. And I was raised to always be calm, to be cool, and to be measured with any reaction that I give. And when someone says that, it's a case of looking at that person and understanding that they are of a different time. This lady was old.
Yeah.
You know, she was old. She was from a bygone era where that was the way you referred to black and brown people.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people of that era, and this is not me making excuses for them, but a lot of people of that era actually saw or sometimes see the term black as being more offensive
Yes.
than colored.
True.
Now, you can only gain that knowledge and that understanding by talking to people.
100%.
By having communication and understanding, well, in your time, that was the done thing. In this time, this is the done thing. And even if it feels strange or weird to say that, this is what you want to say now. So that you don't get pulled.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think to add to that, you always have to look at the intention. What was the
100%.
intent when that person made that remark? You know,
100%.
and you can gauge from that itself.
Yeah. I mean, you look, we're, as human beings, I really believe in energy. You can sense someone's energy. You can sense someone's intention. We all know if someone means something in a way to hurt us.
Yes.
Their intention is to hurt or to disrespect or to degrade. You can tell.
100%.
But you can also tell if someone's doing that in a way where that's just what they think is the done thing. They're
unsure, they're uncertain, you know, they feel awkward. What should I say? The head falls off.
Right. So I always welcome questions, Yinka. I always tell people, listen, if there's something about black people or culture that you've always wondered and you're not sure, I'm open to you asking. My first response is not going to be, how dare you? How else are you going to know?
Case in point for me, though I've been doing this for a long time, but a case in point was George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd. Where I worked in a charity, a national charity, we were starting to have, I was the only black person. So then people started to come to me to talk about the impact of George Floyd. And we started to have some honest and meaningful conversations as a result of that.
Yeah.
But it begged the question, and I asked certain of my colleagues, why have you never spoke to me like this about these things? You know, as if like people are walking on eggshells to talk about aspects of race.
Yeah. But, you know, the reality is, I get it. It's because they don't want to offend. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of the time, it's not because people don't want to know. It's because they don't want to offend. And that sometimes stops us from actually realizing how much we have in common and how much, how many gaps we can bridge.
Yes.
Because we're scared to offend each other.
Yes.
And maybe in some ways, that's why I like comedy, and that's why I enjoy being around comedians, because there's a filter that is immediately removed once you know you're around someone else who's a comedian. Because we don't intend to offend. There are some people, I can't speak for every single comedian, but I know for the most part, as a comedian, you want to go on stage and you want to make people laugh. You want to say a thing that gets someone to laugh as a reaction. The intention is not to offend. So if I'm around a bunch of comedians and we're just talking openly, even if they say something that is a little bit close to the line, I know they're not trying to offend me. We're just speaking openly because that's what you do as comedians. That's what you endeavor to do. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that's probably why I was so drawn to it. But yeah, it's a wild world out there, but I think more communication is better than less. And leaving the door open for people to ask questions and to be curious is better than us just shutting ourselves off and assuming.
100%. I'm just going to stick with being a firefighter.
Yeah, sure, no problem at all, man.
Before we go into
this is genuinely the most I've spoken about being in the fire service since I left. But it's fine. It's fine, and it's helping me to relive some memories.
I mean, one of the things I wanted to raise with you was
Mm.
the stoicism, that machismo of being a firefighter and the culture in that. And were there any times whereby you thought, this is too much for me to do?
That's a good question.
Were you ever scared?
Yeah, 100%. I think if you don't have moments of fear doing a job like that, or if you don't have moments where you feel the weight of doing a job like that, then it will catch up to you. It will catch up to you at some point. And for me, I definitely felt moments of this is too much for me. The first time I felt that was probably back in 2022, I think it was. I think it was it was 2021 going into 2022. And I remember I was an officer in charge of an incident. So during my time in the fire service, I got promoted once. So I went from being what's known as a firefighter to a leading firefighter. And as a leading firefighter, you sometimes have the responsibility to be in charge of a station for the day, and also to be in charge of a watch, for the day, and also to be in charge of the fire engine, to be in charge of the truck. And we got called to a one under, which is effectively someone under a train.
Yes.
And
a suicide,
effectively. You know, I mean, obviously, you never know for sure until you get there.
Of course, the coroner's report and all that. I understand all of that. Yeah.
But a one under, you generally think, right, this is someone who's jumped. And I was the officer in charge for that particular incident. And during my time in the fire service, I'd seen dead bodies before. I'd been to incidents where people had died before. For some reason, this one affected me more than any other. And I don't know if it's because I was in charge of the incident, but I remember it was a young lady who sadly took her own life. And I remember when they retrieved her body and they brought her back to the platform, I remember seeing her really clearly, really vividly. And I remember, this might sound strange to listeners, and I mean this in no way disrespectfully or sexually, but I remember seeing like her underwear, and I remember seeing her socks, and I remember thinking to myself, she went through the process of putting those things on.
It's not weird. You continue, please. I've heard this before. Go on.
Yeah. It was coming back to me in a way where I thought, this person made a conscious decision to get dressed.
Yeah.
But they also made a conscious decision that today would be their last day here.
Yes.
That they wanted today. This was it. This was the most they could take. And it didn't dawn on me like how heavy the weight of it right away. But it was literally like a couple of months afterwards. I remember waking up one morning. I remember waking up one morning, and I remember just thinking to myself, I can't go to work today. Like, I just can't do it. Like, I've always been the kind of person who pushes through. Like, I've been robbed, I've been cheated out of things, but I get up and I go to work. I always turned up. And there was this feeling within me on that morning where it was like, what is going on? I can't do it. I can't get myself to the point where I can go into work today. And I felt like I let so many people down. I felt like I let my watch down. I felt as though I let myself down. I felt as though like, this is not the person that your father and your parents raised. Like, you keep going.
Okay.
But I couldn't. And that was the first moment. That was the catalyst moment where I started to realize this job has become too much for me. And that was like the beginning of the end for my time in the fire brigade.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's man.
You've been to numerous incidents. You've encountered fatalities, etc. And I deliver training within suicide, postvention, etc. You know, and I actually deliver to the fire service as well, up and down the country.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I pick up on is that firefighters, there's a reluctancy to reach out for support.
Yeah.
And so when I was asking about culture, that was part and parcel of it. That, yeah, you've dealt with an incident, a fatality, and then you go to your next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is that?
The truth is, I think it's the honest answer is I don't know, but I could hazard a few guesses. So
Guess away.
You know, I think number one, there's a societal pressure in terms of you're a man. You're supposed to be this masculine, hard person. Boys don't cry. You get up, you get on with it. You don't show any weakness, like that sort of thing. And the idea that admitting that you're struggling is weakness. That's what's been sold to us throughout our lives. So many people sit in silence, whether it's they don't understand something and need it to be explained again, or they don't know what they're feeling inside, but they're reluctant to talk about it. And sitting in that silence is what ultimately destroys people. So I feel as though that's part of it. I feel as though there's also a culture, and I'm not going to say that it's rife throughout every fire service. I genuinely don't know, right? I can only talk about the experiences I've had. So when I say these things, if anybody from any emergency service is listening, this is not me saying it's everywhere, but from my experience, sometimes if you're that person who raises their head above the parapet, you're scared that you could become the one who gets ridiculed. You're scared that you become the one who your colleagues might not trust in a situation, or you become the laughing stock, right? And I think that culture has, for the time that I was in the fire service, I saw it change over time. And it could be because I was getting older and I was maturing and I was figuring out who I am and I was comfortable with who I was. So I didn't care if anybody else had any thoughts or feelings about who I was. But I do think that culture is changing. And I do feel as though those are some of the reasons and those are the guesses I would hazard as to why a lot of people do stay quiet about it. But the reality is that silence, man, that staying quiet, that not reaching out and talking to somebody, that is the thing that will destroy you. Because I got to a point where I felt like I can't go into work. I didn't want to go to work anymore. I didn't want to be in the environment anymore. And talking about it, it took a long time. I mean, I started feeling this way in like 2021, 2022.
Okay.
I started talking to people probably about a year later. But in terms of leaving the fire service, that was nearly a 4-year process.
Wow.
Because I didn't want to leave this, like there was this feeling of this security, this place that I know. But this place that I know and this job that I'm doing is slowly destroying me.
Absolutely. And it's not giving you all the support that you needed.
What I would say is this. I would say my experience in terms of being supported in the London Fire Brigade, hand on heart, my experience was actually positive.
Okay.
In terms of the resources, in terms of being able to speak to counselors if I wanted to, right? In terms of the management that I had, specific to me. Yes. Everybody's experience is different.
It's different, of course.
I genuinely had managers who really took their time with me. I remember on one of my last occasions this was kind of like when the writing was just clearly on the wall. I remember driving to work, and again, that feeling hit me. This was like 2024, and I drove all the way to work, and I was at every red light. I was just like saying to myself, just turn back. Kept going. Next red light, just turn back, go home, don't do this. Kept going. And I ended up outside the fire station, and I just broke down. I broke down in tears. And my manager at the time, I called him and I said, I'm outside, but I just can't come in. I just can't do it. And he heard me crying on the phone, and I said, can you come out and just sit with me? And he came out, he sat in my car with me. We had a really open, honest conversation. And he looked at me and said, you can't be here right now. You know. And so what I mean is that my experience was actually a positive experience in terms of the people who were there for me during that period. But I know some people may feel as though the resources aren't there or the support's not there. And for them, I am genuinely sorry to hear that. But I got lucky in the sense of the managers I had. And
you say you got lucky, but I think you were brave as well. Brave in the sense of you were able to be vulnerable and say, you can't do this. And I suppose, I don't know how many fatalities you've attended and that, but, and Tim's put it in, you know, in the chat, but yeah, I'm thinking this constancy of trauma, bearing witness to trauma, putting yourself at risk. You know, that vicarious trauma itself is going to have an impact.
Well, you know, a lot of it, Yinka, is also the stuff that doesn't happen. Because every single day you wake up and you go into work and you're living in this space of anything can happen.
Yeah, the what ifs.
So you got a lot of what ifs. And that's a lot of what people don't realize is that's a lot of anxiety.
And emotional energy that you're dealing with. Yes.
You're dealing with all of that. You know, you have to be prepared for whatever happens. But it might happen, it might not happen. And it's a catch-22 also, right? And the reason why I say it's a catch-22 situation is because when you're trained to do something, you kind of want it to happen. Now, when I say that, please understand, I don't want anyone to get hurt and I don't want anyone to lose their life. But when you're trained to do something, if you're not actually doing it, you feel a degree of worthlessness.
Yes.
You start to feel like the thing I'm meant to be doing, I'm not getting to do it often enough. So now I'm starting to lack confidence and self-worth. Add on top of that, you're working shift patterns that are all over the place, days and nights. You're sleeping on a fire station, but you can get woken up at any time. You're dealing with these levels of anxiety raising up in you. If you don't have mechanisms in place to really deal with that energy that you're building up on a daily basis, you will crash.
100%.
I crashed.
I was going to ask about burnout as well.
Well, you know, excuse the pun. But
well, I didn't even realize I was that good, but yeah, literally.
Listen, the thing about burnout is often you don't realize you're burnt out until you are.
Until afterwards, yes.
That's the thing about it, you know? Like, so the best thing you can do in life in general is try and acknowledge the signs. You know, am I becoming really irritable with the people that love me? Am I waking up and I don't have the encouragement or enthusiasm to do anything? I was training. Why have I stopped training? Why am I not going to the gym? I used to do this thing when I went to work. Before I got to work, I'd stop off at the corner shop and I'd buy like a big bar of chocolate and like 3 packs of chewy sweets. Why am I doing that exactly? Oh, like start looking at your eating patterns, because that was anxiety eating. That was stress eating. That's what I was doing. So there's always telltale signs, you know. Am I drinking more often? Like there's things that you can, if you know yourself well enough, you can pick up on these little signs that will tell you, hey, I am getting to a point here where I'm stretching myself.
Yes.
how can I try and right this? How can I get this ship back on course? So that's the thing about burnout. Often you have to burn out to know that's what's happening.
Yes.
And hopefully it doesn't happen multiple times. Hopefully you can then put things in place to make sure it doesn't happen again, you
Of
know?
course. And you'd be able to spot the signs now.
100%. 100%. I literally had a situation maybe about up to a week ago where I noticed that I wasn't training. I wasn't getting in the gym. I wasn't getting my 10,000 steps. I wasn't doing enough physical activity. And I also noticed that I was just eating whatever I wanted to eat whenever I wanted to eat it. And sometimes I didn't even need it. I wasn't hungry. But I'd come home maybe late from a gig. It's 1, 2 in the morning. And I'm thinking, I'll just have a can of beer. Why am I drinking 2 cans of beer at 2 in the morning? How am I going to get a good sleep after that? Am I going to be motivated for the next day? So I started to realize, okay, you're doing this off of impulse, and the impulse is being generated. Maybe you're a bit stressed. Maybe you're a bit anxious. You know, I'm living this new life now where I'm self-employed. I don't have the security of a full-time job. I have to go out there and find the work.
Yes.
Okay, maybe this is getting on top of me. Okay, let's get back to some regularity. Let's start drinking our 2 liters of water a day. Let me get back to eating, counting my calories. Let me get back in the gym. I can identify when it's happening, the signs.
Good.
But luckily now I feel as though I have the tools to not
Good.
just recognize the signs, but to actually do something about it. Yeah.
Good. I know we spent a lot of time talking in the fire service.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Well,
no problem.
But I think it's going to be beneficial for our listeners as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you did eventually reach out, say help, and you got counselors, had you experienced suicidal thoughts or anything like that?
Yeah, for me, I would honestly say I never got to that stage. I never got to the stage of so I remember someone said to me, if you ever speak to somebody and you question them about whether they've had suicidal thoughts, one of the things you should always ask them is, have you planned it? Like, have you decided how you're going to do it? Right.
Yeah.
And that might be the suicide conversation is always a tough conversation to have with anybody.
But it's an essential conversation to have.
100% Yinka. Right. And even though, because again, it comes down to that, I don't want to offend anybody. Right. If I call you up, Yinka, and I say to you, have you been thinking about taking your life? You don't want someone to be like, how dare you think I would do that? You don't want to offend. So that's
why people don't ask the question.
Exactly. But be willing to offend them.
Of course.
Because if it's a true friend and this is a true relationship, they will get to a place where they see that question came from love. Right.
100%.
I know 2 people.
I care about you.
100%.
I'm willing to help you. I understand.
100%. And, you know, for me, I know 2 people who I worked with during my time in the London Fire Brigade. 2 people I know who took their lives, right? And I often think to myself, as everyone does, was there something I could have done? Was there a conversation I could have had, et cetera, right? So the question that you are, but I personally, I never got to a place where I seriously considered doing that, where I ever thought about it, planned it out, and had a strategy as to how I would have my last day on earth. What I will say is that there have been times when I have thought to myself whether not being here would be easier.
Yes. I'm glad you've said that, because we need to normalize the conversation about talking about suicide.
Right. And
a lot of us do experience fleeting thoughts of, I wonder what it'd be like not to be here.
100%. If anyone who says that they've never experienced that, they've never had a thought like that, I'm not going to say, I can't speak for other people, right? But there's a part of me that doubts that.
A comedic part of you. Go on. Come on.
Right.
I just saw that speech bubble come up there.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, are you telling me? So you're telling me you've never got a bill, and you've never just like had a bunch of things happen to you, and you had to go shopping again. Your credit card's overdrawn. You're getting charged again. You're telling me you've never ever just thought, what would it be like just if I didn't have to deal with any of this, if I wasn't here? Like, I feel like that's a natural thought that people will have, right?
Yes.
Which is why the question then of, have you thought about how you would do it? Have you planned it?
Yeah.
That's why that question becomes so important.
Of course. Because you're moving from the thought to the plan to the act.
Right. So I think normalizing the idea that these thoughts are thoughts that we all have, I think that's sensible. I think that's smart. And I don't want people to feel like they're weird for thinking that. I remember hearing someone say once, like, if you're ever waiting for a train and you have that moment, where you're
like lemmings.
Right.
I wonder what it'd be like.
But they said if you have that thought, you're fine. You're safe. You're the person who's most likely not gonna do it. You know what I mean? You're running it through. But it's like, I've never been in a position where I've really thought about doing it because, call me a hopeless romantic, but I like to think that tomorrow can present me with something new, and that
hope.
new thing, right? We're where there's hope, or where there's life, there's hope. You know what I mean? There's the potential.
There's possibilities, of course. Of course. So, I just want to go back. You said during your time, you lost 2 people to suicide. What was the impact?
Well,
on the service, on your colleagues?
Oh, the impact was well, with one of them, the impact was very, very heavy on the fire service. I mean, I think there was an inquest, and there was a lot of things that were changed following that person's suicide. A lot of new processes that came in. That I don't remember the specifics of it, because, to be honest with you, the moment I left, I just kind of emptied my brain of a lot of that stuff. But for one of them in particular, who I worked with on a regular basis, the impact for me, I don't know what it was like on many other people. And even looking back, we just never spoke about it much. You know what I mean? Like, even that's a cool tune though. Like, you know what I mean?
Can't even turn it off now. Damn.
I think we should all just break out into a little bit of a dance.
Sorry, peeps.
If that does not make an Instagram clip, then I don't even know what this show. I don't even know what I'm doing here.
You didn't hear that. You're not doing anything. Damn.
Tim, make sure that's a blooper. Get that out there. No, but yeah, so one of my colleagues one of my colleagues who committed suicide. The impact, I know, for me was what hit me the most is that I saw him like a month prior, and I just remember exchanging the briefest of words with him. And I was like, look, man, like, I heard about everything that happened, but are you all right? Because sadly, what had happened, he got demoted.
Yes.
And, he'd been in the job for, I think, over 2 decades. And, there's a lot of weight that comes with a rank, but losing the rank.
Yeah. Shame, steps in and everything else. Yes.
And I was like, are you all right? And it was just like, yeah, I'm all right. And it's just, you can never know what anyone else has going through their head and what their thoughts are. But when I look back on it, we never really spoke about it much. When it happened, and he did take
as a watch, as a team.
Yeah, as a team, we never I don't really remember sitting down, all of us getting a cup of tea and sitting down around the mess table and just kind of like talking it out. And if I could go back I mean, if I could go back, there's a lot of things I'd do differently, and there's a lot more conversations I'd love to have with him. But even as a watch and as a team, I feel like I would have probably tried to instigate that and encourage us all to sit down and just say what's on our minds, you know. But yeah, those things rock people, man. And I also think because I know what suicide leaves behind, that's something that would always be on my mind about whether I do it because I just know that the emptiness and also the questions, just so many questions.
Yeah.
I would never want to leave people with those questions, you know.
Have you ever lost family members or friends, close friends to suicide?
Not to suicide, no. Apart from the colleagues I worked with, one of which who, you know, was closer to a friend than not, you know, because I see him and talk to him on regular occasions. But I've never lost any close friends that I can recall to suicide or family members, which I'm really grateful for. You know, I've lost people, but it just suicide is it just takes another layer of the why. It's just so many whys, and even if you know the reason why, you still feel like, but there was tomorrow, man. There was tomorrow might have brought something, you know. What about you,
Yeah.
Yinka? What about you, if I may ask?
Have I lost people to suicide? I
Yeah,
have.
I'm
I
sorry
have.
to hear that, man.
I don't. And yeah, in the midst of doing all this work around suicide, mental health, etc., I didn't see it coming.
Yeah,
I didn't see it coming, but it's not the reason why I immerse myself in this. I immerse myself in it because I feel that it's important. It's an important piece of work. You know, I just seen new figures today that for 2024, 7,078 people died by suicide, according to the Office of National Statistics. And that's up from the previous year, which was 7,055.
yeah,
And you spoke about this. 3/4 of the people who died, approximately 4,800 people, were not known to mental health services, did not put the hand up and say help,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Well,
The other thing, I don't mind repeating myself. Within the Black community, we don't talk about it
yeah,
for fear of being stigmatized because of the systemic pressures of the systems that are purported to support us.
yeah.
But the ONS does not even record people of colours who have died by suicide. So how do we know how to target resources?
Right. Well, you know, I think firstly it just starts with each of us individually making sure that we check in with the people who are closest to us, right?
Yeah.
And then trying to encourage others to do the same. Um, I I think that's the starting point for it. Normalizing the conversation,
Yes.
normalizing calling up a friend and being like, talk to me, man. What's
Yeah.
going on? How
Yeah.
are you? Like,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that you presenting that anything's going on, right? But I just know life gets heavy.
Yeah.
What's going on for you?
Yes.
Starting there, because as much as I can't see myself ever doing that and committing suicide, and I'd hope that the people I love and the people I know would never get there. Ever since I left the fire service and I didn't have the security of a job, and it then became self-employment, and it became the idea of like not having the same amount of money, having to
Mm.
like not having a vehicle anymore, you know, all of these things at this stage of my life, also being in a relationship with a woman who's like got a child and she works full time, and then I'm waking up in the morning, I'm chasing my dream of comedy and doing all the things I'm doing, but I'm watching her get up and go to work 9 to 5. As a man, all of these things start to tick away at you. You
Yeah.
know, you start to, because we put a lot of our value in what we go out and do and what we bring back to the
As
household
providers, as
as
hunter gatherers.
providers,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But what I try to remind myself, and I would encourage everyone to try and remind themselves of this, is number one, your value goes beyond monetary. It goes beyond what you hunt, gather, and bring back to the home. But
Absolutely.
also, something I always try to remind myself, right, is sometimes I think of a friend of mine. I might not have seen this person for years. I might not have spoken of them for years, but I know they're alive. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, they exist, right? I got friends from high school, primary school. Every now and then they'll pop into my head and I'll think, yeah, they exist. Like they're here somewhere. They're doing their thing, right? You just being here, people think of you. They're not always going to reach out and tell you that they're thinking of you. They're not going to text you and be like, hey, just thinking of you today. But people think about you, and their lives are often enriched just knowing that
That
you're
you
also
exist.
that you exist, that you're walking the same earth they are, that you're here, right? And that is something I always try and communicate to people. And I always try and remember for myself when things get low, when I'm looking at my own self-worth and I'm considering, am I doing well? Am I not? Am I a burden to this person? Blah, blah, blah.
I love that word, burden. I love that word.
Right. Because we often think that, like, is my presence a burden to somebody? And it's like, even if it is to somebody else, me being here is brightening their day. Just knowing I'm actually still here sharing this same air we breathe. And you got to come back to that, especially when things get heavy.
100%. We haven't really talked much about comedy and that because this has been really important. And I'm gracious for having you on here to talk authentically.
Bless you, man. I honestly, I didn't even have to research much about this podcast. Like once I realized that the theme, I just wanted to say, honestly, thank you to you and to your producer, Tim, for creating a space and having people on where they can have these conversations. And thank you to your listeners and hopefully they all get something from these conversations because they are important. I agree with you, Yinka.
They will, undoubtedly. Okay. Are you working tonight?
I'm not working, but I have to travel to my partner's place. So no gigs tonight.
Okay. So you finish off here today.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to your partner's.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, little Roman Harris, 10 years old, knows where your partner lives, knocks at the door, and you open it.
Yeah.
What do you say to him?
Dude, you don't grow much more than this, to be honest with you. That's about...
And the door slams.
I wouldn't be a comedian if I didn't throw that in there. I wouldn't. No, but to answer seriously, I wouldn't even say anything to him. I just give him a hug.
Nice.
He wouldn't know what the hell's going on. He'd feel weird. He wouldn't understand it. But I'd just give him a hug. And hopefully with that hug, it will communicate every single word that I'd want to say. That's what I do.
All that energy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful question.
Thank you. Roman Harris. I'm going to share this with you. When Tim said we've got Roman Harris and that, I saw your profile and it just gave me a big smile and a nice warm wallah. Honestly, it did.
Bless you, man. Bless you.
You've been an amazing guest. We're going to get you back here quickly soon because for me, I'd like to know more about growing up. Mm-hmm. I'd like to know more about your comedy, etc.
Yeah, cool.
So we'll arrange that.
Yeah, sure, man.
Just soon.
No
but
problem.
Roman Harris, thank you for being on the Hurt Locker. And it's a wrap, Tim.
All the best. Take care, man.
The Hurt Locker is a safe space for our guests to openly share their mental health experiences. If you have been affected by any of the content in this recording, then please reach out for support. If it is an emergency, dial 999. If you would like to talk to somebody today, then please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Stay safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.